that we just had our lunch.
Very rough.
Hello, Macadie. Hello, world. This is Attorney Angel, and I'm your legal angel. Hi, my fellow angels. Sharing with you the recorded lecture that I sent to my students. Enjoy listening and watching.
I will be sharing with you this PowerPoint presentation on the essential principles of legal writing. First, a quick view of the content of this presentation. I have divided the essential principles into 4 major categories. 1, on the purpose. 2, regarding planning. 3, practical rules on different matters. And 4, on polishing your work. Let's go first to purpose. So of course, you have to know your purpose and you have to know your audience. It is important for you to be able to answer the following questions. What is your objective and who is your audience? And based on your answers from these questions, you must adapt. Example, it would be a different objective if you are writing a demand letter compared to writing a particular pleading for a particular case in court. And you will also have a different audience when you are writing a legal demand letter or a pleading to be submitted or filed in court. So based on being mindful of your objective, your purpose, your goal, or your why in legal writing, and knowing who will be your audience, for whom you are writing, and to whom you are writing, you must be able to adapt. Next, we have planning. Devise a plan. Why is it important to plan? Because it is important for you to strategize and to prepare before going about the process of writing per se. So identify what your strategy is and identify the process on how you will go about your writing. As we say, preparation is the key, and when you are prepared, half the battle is already won. So are you going to make an outline? Are you going to make a mind map? Are you going to list down and take your objectives? Are you going to list down and take your possible sources for your legal research? And your plan, your strategy in gathering information, gathering the facts, and gathering the sources that you will use. Already have your plan, if you already have your strategy, and you already thought about how to go about the process of your writing, then it will become easier for you to execute and start your writing process. Now, number 3, on the practical rules, there are several matters that you have to take into consideration, such as the following. So, observe the rules of grammar and composition, check your spelling, use plain language or plain English for lawyers, use gender-fair, gender-sensitive language, and follow the required format. Okay, again, just to go back to the practical rules, write clearly, simply, concisely, and legibly. Use correct grammar, use correct punctuation, check your spelling or spell check, and it is also important for you to develop the skill of spotting the issue or issue spotting. Because of course, our legal writing springs from a legal issue or a legal problem. And we have to be able to identify that issue and focus on that issue in order for us to go about our legal writing and our legal research and follow the format. Okay. Let's just go back to some of the practical rules. Okay. Write clearly, simply, concisely, and legibly. Okay. Based on the Oxford Dictionary, to write clearly, you must be able to understand the meaning of what clear means. So clear means easy to perceive and understand. Okay, and then we have to write simply. You have to understand the meaning of simple, meaning to say not complicated or uncomplicated. Then we have concisely. Write concisely from the root word concise. To write concisely, you have to understand what concise means. It means brief but comprehensive. I have my own version of this. I always tell my students that for me concise means short enough to cover everything, long enough to be long enough to be interesting. Okay. And then to write legibly from the root word legible, meaning to write legibly, whether it is handwritten or in printed form, it must be readable. And if it is printed, use formats or fonts that are easy to read, that are beautiful, and you don't need to decipher. Okay. Then, of course, to write clearly means to avoid ambiguity. Ambiguity, vagueness, okay, subject to double interpretation, etc. So to be able to avoid ambiguity, we must be clear with what we mean. And because if we are not clear with what we mean, there may be misinterpretation or misunderstanding, and it may be taken into a different context or out of context of what you really mean. Okay. Also, be mindful that some words have several meanings. There are some words that have different meanings, so be careful. That is why it's also connected to be clear with what you mean, because others might misread or misinterpret or misunderstand. Instead of the meaning that you intend to have, they give it another meaning. And then we have here another one for avoiding ambiguity. Okay. So sometimes pronouns may refer to more than one person or thing in a sentence. So we must be clear to whom that pronoun is being used in that sentence. Okay, and not all persons may be familiar with the acronyms or abbreviations used. So what we do, we spell out the abbreviation or the acronym first before we put the acronym or the abbreviation in parentheses. Another one under the practical rules and also in writing clearly and concisely, simply, legibly, etc. is to avoid redundancy. Okay. There's also what we call tautology. Okay. Example of redundancy. I have written here small in size, pwede ring large in size, past history, true facts. Okay, why redundant? Because when you say small, naturally, it refers to size. When you say history, of course you know that history refers to the past. And no need to cite true when you have facts, because we all know that facts are based on the truth. So avoid redundancy. Some reminders again, okay? Be mindful of your basic rules on subject-verb agreement. Go back to what we reviewed on the 10 basic rules on subject-verb agreement. That will be a good guide for you whenever you have your legal writing or writing per se or writing in general. And of course, with that, be careful with the use of punctuation marks. Sometimes punctuation marks are misplaced, so it gives out a different meaning. And then for the sentences, always be mindful that your sentence must have a complete thought and that your sentence construction must be simple and uncomplicated. As we said, write clearly, concisely, and simply. Okay? And then follow the format. Okay? Use the proper format. Okay, when we refer to the format, we can always ask the professor regarding the requirements for the margin, the spacing, of course, proper use of headings, and then the writing style. So if you started with speaking in your first voice, be consistent throughout. Okay, and then of course in pleadings, there is a strict format required by the Supreme Court, as we will discuss in our future lessons regarding the efficient use of paper rule. Okay. And of course, use credible sources. Use not just credible, but good sources. And do not forget to cite your sources. Properly attribute. If it is not your original idea, if you lifted several sentences or quotations from the works of others, cite them, attribute them to where that attribution is due. Of course, this is part of ethical legal research, and ethical legal writing. And of course, ethics of being an aspiring lawyer and ethics as lawyers as well. And of course, although nobody's perfect, they say practice makes perfect. Maybe that applies to legal writing and honing your skills in issue spotting and as well as your skills in legal research. So practice, 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 and don't be afraid to make mistakes because it is through the mistakes that we learn. Okay, channel that mistake into positive energy and that to something that will make you improve, make you develop, and that would enhance your skills as well. Okay. With a proper citation, of course, use primary and secondary sources. As I said, use credible sources and use good sources. In a world that is full of fake news or false information, it is a good exercise to always fact check and verify your sources. Okay. And as I said, legal research skills are important. Okay. And I always tell my students that legal research is the twin of legal writing. In the preparation and the planning stage, and everything prior to executing your legal writing, all of that is connected with legal research. That is why it is the twin of legal writing. And then the output, the end result, is legal writing. Okay? And it is important to always observe ethical legal research and legal writing. And one good exercise of that is to properly attribute and cite your sources. And last but not the least, polishing. Okay, polishing meaning review, revise, reread before sending the final revision. A final version, I mean. So, sabi nga ni Ernest Hemingway, write drunk, edit sober. Okay, edit ruthlessly. You can write and write and write, and then make sure that before you submit the final version, you have revised, edited, proofread, and then submit the final version. There will be no more room for mistakes in the final version. Okay. So that's it for this recorded lecture. So thank you for listening, and be kind, be a blessing to others.
Glorify God with a grateful heart. This is Attorney Angel, and I'm your legal angel. Sarang